Welcome back to lecture 12.1. So in lecture 12.1, we're going to talk about the Waals gas, I think that's supposed to be a lowercase d, Waals gas, with examples in free expansion and throttling. Okay, so I just want to take a moment to point out which chapters of the book we've been working in. So if we look in the Finn, the second edition, we had done chapter 1 and chapter 2, except for free expansion, which is 2.6, which we're going to do today. We hadn't gone on to chapter 3 yet. We will actually do that. Oh, we did do some of chapter 3. Let's see, we did first law, we did heat capacity, free expansion, 9. So we're doing some Joule Kelvin effect, so 3.8. So we've been doing 3.8. So we've been doing chapter 3, but we've also have done a little bit in chapter 7. So some of the stuff we are going to do today, you'll find in section 7.7. If I can find 7.7. Yeah, 7.7. Joule Kelvin effect in 7.7 of Finn. Okay, so, and then next time we will actually go on to chapter 4, the second law of thermodynamics. Okay. So, remembering where we were last time. So, last time, lecture 11, we have done the demo where we did throttling, and we saw that when we got nitrogen, we got warming, and when we did helium, we got warming under throttling process, and when we did nitrogen, we got cooling. Now, the curious thing about this was we realized that throttling, by making up this alternate scenario where we could calculate the work, was in fact a isenthalpic process. For an ideal gas, an isenthalpic process should also be an isothermal process. So what we had to come up with a way to explain our results, our experiment, because experiment is always king. So what we found was, what we realized was that we had neglected the size of the atom, right? So we had looked at our general potential, right? And we said that the force was going to be minus d phi dr, where the potential versus radius was actually going to have this Lennard-Jones potential, okay? Now, where there's some preferred distance, which eventually we're going to call R0, but also that there was some sort of finite hard sphere distance where this thing diverged, right? This was the repulsive part, and this was the attractive part. Okay, so the first thing we did was we took into account the hard sphere gas, we called it. And we said, well, we'll just replace this potential with one that looks like infinity here at D and 0 out here, right? So we're going to have an infinite potential, and we're going to have a 0 potential outside. Okay, so what we did was when we did that, we found that we could actually take the volume, right, and decrease it by the size of those atoms, which we found, this was in molar volumes, right? So we said it was Avogadro's number times 4/3 pi d cubed. Basically the volume of a liquid, the molar volume of the atoms. Okay, so that account, but when we calculated what delta T was, right, for this free expansion, we got a minus B delta P over CP. That was that when we had an expansion process, we would always get, so when the pressure went, so I think we wrote it like this, delta, so T1 minus T2 is equal to minus B P1 minus P2 over CP. That is, when the pressure goes from high to low, this is positive. And when I get that means my T1 will always be, sorry, my T2, yeah, T2, so this would say that T2 is like T1 plus B delta P over CP, right? That, right, move this T2 onto that side, this on this side, so that the temperature is always going to go up if the pressure goes down. Okay, so we only got warming. So this explained the helium, but it did not explain the nitrogen. Okay, so today we want to explain, can we explain the cooling we saw for N2. Okay, so the way to think about this is, what's different between N2 and helium? Well, clearly, so what we know about helium is we've also often called it the most ideal gas. And we said when we talked about ideality, we're ignoring all of our interatomic and intermolecular forces. Nitrogen is clearly a molecule already, so if you think back to your chemistry, it's kind of it's polarizable, right? There's already a distribution of the electronic cloud. So last time we sort of roughly dealt with the repulsive part of the interaction. This time now we need to think about the attractive part. So we need to take into account attractive intermolecular potentials. Okay, so we're not going to obviously do this full calculation, so let's ask ourselves, what could we do, right? How could we take into account this, some rough, kind of like a physicist, right, next highest order correction to our equation of state. So what we can think about is we can imagine drawing the molecules, right? So imagine some molecule, and let's say we're going to have this in a box with a right-hand side wall, and imagine a bunch of molecules with, I don't know why I'm making them so regular. They should be very random. I think the human brain is not very good at making things random. Okay, so let's pick, these are all identical molecules, obviously. You can see how perfectly they were drawn. So take one molecule, and we were imagining that the force was proportional, the pressure on the walls, right? The pressure was proportional to the average force, right? Which was proportional to the change in momentum per unit time. Okay. So the way you can think about what the attractive intermolecular potentials are is you imagine this. Let's imagine this one feels a pull towards this one, and this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. So this was my, let's imagine this one was my P equals mv. That was my momentum. But these are all parts of my minus partial phi, partial r, right? Or these are all my minus d phi drs. So there was some potential, and it's attractive, so it's pulling these, right? And if there's no molecules here, what do you see as the net result? Well, it's probably going to balance in this direction for now, but since there's no molecules here, there's a net force pulling it back. So we're going to decrease the net force. Net force on wall, hence pressure. Okay? So let's come up with a way, like a phenomenological way, to imagine writing our equation of state where we're going to decrease the pressure. Okay, remember so far we had PV equals RT. I wrote this in terms of the molecular volume. And then we had our P minus V equals RT. But I want to write this in terms of the pressure. So this is RT over V minus B. And so you can see it's got this 1 over V dependence on the volume. And so my next order would be something where the pressure is now RT over V minus B, right? But now I want some term that's going to be like 1 over V squared, right? So I want it to decrease the pressure, and I clearly need some sort of constant here because I don't know exactly what it is, and so let's just call it A. So this is really sort of the next order correction. So another way to write that, or maybe even the more common way to write that, is P plus A over V squared, V minus B equals RT. And this is called the van der Waals equation. Oh, and I spelled it wrong, and I spelled it wrong twice, not just once. It occurred to me, it's not Waals, it's whoa, I don't know how to pronounce that. Anyway, 2 A's and not 2 L's. So I like to always think about what the scale of A is, right? So for helium, A is approximately 3.45 times 10 to the minus 3. Now, wait, what should our units be? Okay, let's check. So we're going to need to have pascals in the end. So we're going to have to be left over with pascals. So we're going to have pascals. But you can see that we're going to be dividing by a volume squared. So that's going to be dividing by volume squared. I'm going to need a meter to the 6. But though that was molar volume, right? So that's mole squared. Okay, so this is going to be the units on A. Pascals, meter to the 6 per mole squared. All right, so our other gas we did last time was nitrogen. So nitrogen was 140 times 10 to the minus 3. Water is 551 times 10 to the minus 3. And CO2 is 362 times 10 to the minus 3. Okay, what these reflect, so scale of A reflects the scale of the intermolecular forces. Right? Very weak intermolecular forces. Right? So these are very small. Now these are very large, CO2 and water, because there's a lot of interatomic forces, right? We know there's a lot of interatomic forces with H2O because it actually liquefies. There's a lot of attractive intermolecular forces. We know that because it liquefies at a relatively high temperature, right? So this is why we have liquid water. Whereas a lot of other gases would be gases. Okay, so now I want to take a moment and we'll do an example in class where we are going to calculate the pressure of a cylinder of gas, just like the nitrogen cylinder we had last time. We're going to calculate the pressure when they're full. Okay, so we're going to do this with an ideal gas, we'll do it with a hard sphere gas, and we'll do it with a van der Waals gas. Okay, so we're going to do that in an example, and then we'll come back and we'll look at the internal energy.